Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first panel of the TAFE Media Forum, Branding or Bust. Our guests will be exploring the future of personal branding, storytelling, and influencing for freelancers, creators, and media personalities in 2026. Please welcome our panelists. Jen Bowers. Jen is the founder of Gen B Brands and a personal branding strategist known for helping businesses build authentic, confidence-led brands through storytelling and social media. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Nick Gray. Nick is the founder of IGU Global, a retail strategist and a keynote speaker known for his work in emotionally intelligent branding, customer behaviour, and AI-driven business strategy. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
And Hayley Ferguson. Hayley is an Australian television producer and host of Beyond Reality, a podcast and media platform exploring the world of reality television through interviews with producers, crew, and on-screen talent from across the industry. Welcome, Hayley.
Hello.
And joining them on stage are our very own TAFE Media students, Ellen and Mitch. Take it away.
Thanks, Jackson. I'd also like to thank everyone attending today, both here and online, and of course our panelists. Jen, I'm going to kick it off with you. You often say that people should be a flamingo in a flock of seagulls.
I do, yes.
With so many people starting online brands today, what actually makes someone memorable?
Oh gosh, have we got all day for me to talk about this? So honestly, the biggest thing I would say about building this unforgettable AF brand that is a flamingo is be you. Be yourself. It's really easy to get lost in all that online noise, especially with the advent of AI. Now, please, I love AI. I use it all the time. But the most important thing is to be yourself. Your personality, your story. You know, people that, I don't have a story. Everybody has a story. And storytelling, you can make a story from buying a car, from, getting dressed for this today, Tell the story, share the story, because that makes people connect with you. And that is something that's really lacking in 2026. We're all out there. So many people are saying the same thing, and they're sounding the same because they get on a good old chatty, they put in what they want, and it comes out and they don't edit it. They just post it. And that's when we all stand the same, and that's when we don't stand out. So becoming that flamingo, you don't have to be colourful and have pink hair. Honestly, that flamingo is the most authentic brand that is you and showing you, because people connect with you. They don't connect with AI. They don't connect with your logo. They connect with you.
Very nice. And I bought my flamingo pink clipboard just for you today.
Thank you.
Hayley, you've built a strong reputation in quite a niche part of the media industry. Did you consciously think about personal branding when you were building Beyond Reality, or is that just something that happened more organically?
I would say no, but I guess with being a TV producer, I actually had the idea for Beyond Reality to interview people in the industry very early in my career. But what I essentially realised is that before I could do that, before I could have people that don't usually speak in public about the TV industry, I had to have the reputation myself. So I had to work as a TV producer, which is what I was doing, but I guess build that reputation so that people would trust me. I guess I wasn't consciously thinking about personal brand, but personal brand definitely, I guess, helped me build the podcast to what it is now.
Yeah, very nice, of course. And for yourself, Nick, so you've spent a lot of years in the retail industry and you've worked with big names like Nike, Adidas, and Westfield. You're now a CEO yourself. When it comes to your personal brand, what influences did you pull from to help shape and guide that?
Yeah, interesting question. If you look at the 19 years that I did, 8.5 years at Adidas, 10 years at Nike, my job was I looked after the fashion and streetwear side of the business. So my job was to make sure we were securing credibility in the market, my job was to make sure people missed out, basically. And what it meant was it wasn't actually in retail. My job was to understand how consumers made decisions, right? And so what I learned pretty quickly was that humans make decisions with emotion and they justify it with logic later. So internally as a business, we're dealing with humans. Externally with customers, we're dealing with humans. So if you're not understanding how humans work, then products are irrelevant, right? And so the opinion that I had and started to understand meant that I could almost take the approach which good brands do, in that the best way to serve your audience is to ignore them. And it sounds really counterintuitive, right? But if you take any good artist, I see this guy here with an Eazy-E on. These guys don't make music to keep the audience happy. They make it to have an opinion, right? And what that does is creates a sense of belonging in reverse, right? So belonging and standing alone are actually inseparable, and yet we are taught that it's keep this consumer happy, keep that consumer happy, and what you almost got to do is define your own opinion so that you can come to market, be unapologetic, almost polarizing in what you have to say. So back to your question, there's so much that I didn't agree with in the way that many brands work, and there's a lot of brands that I can't work with simply because their objectives are not aligned to mine, right? There's a lot of big corporate brands that ask me to go and work with them, but I know that all they're wanting to do is just drive P&L, drive sales, and I'm like, man, that's, you can influence that, but you need to take care of the emotional side of it first. So I needed to make sure when I was wanting to work with brands, I needed to almost take myself as a brand so that I have that connection to brands that think like-mindedly towards the same thing that I do. So I do that. I take that really, really seriously through everything that I say, the way I write content for Inside Retail here or Inside Retail in the US, public speaking, because what you're actually trying to do is create the dislike. Does that make sense? So what we're fundamentally trying to do is build trust, right? And trust, humans are hardwired to trust, right? There's people that you know that you don't like, that you trust, right? But you trust them in a different way. You trust that they might say something inappropriate in front of your children, or you trust that they're going to be late. But we as humans are always looking for like or dislike trust, right? And so if you can take care of the dislike trust, what it does is it moves the like trust up into love. And so that's the importance of being polarizing and clear around your opinion.
Which brand do you think has really nailed that trust factor?
Well, there's two types of camps, right? We're really going to go into it. You're either a cognitive default or you're an emotional default, right? And most brands will go cognitive default first, which is wrong. A cognitive default is any brand where a customer is making an automatic decision. Where do I get my shopping from? I go to Kohl's. Where do I get my home tech product? JB Hi-Fi. It's a really short equation. But if you're not playing in that camp, and it's really hard to play in that camp, then you're playing in the emotional default. And what that means is that customers are making decisions based on the emotion or feeling they have attached to that brand or business. So the problem is that as soon as you're not consistent in delivering that same emotion, that same feeling you're selling, it creates what's called cognitive dissonance, and it confuses the consumer. Oh, you told me you were this, but now you're telling me you're that, right? Patagonia would be a great example. Their emotional default is culture, right? And so what they do is they look at their business and they say, our objective as a business is to have a positive impact in the environment and world around us. And then they deliver that through physical, through online, through activism, through activations, and they galvanize this community because they're answering the question, which brand aligns to my values, beliefs, behaviors? Patagonia.
Yeah, thank you everyone for that. Opening this up to the panel, everyone's sort of spoken about trust, like focusing on self, and then this, entry level into that psychology of branding. What would you consider, Hayley, to be a non-negotiable with a personal brand that makes up a personal brand?
I guess it's probably on what Jen said. I think, and it's a buzzword, authenticity. But I mean, that's what people want. I think, AI is getting more and more powerful. And like to the point where you can see videos, like my husband works in television and he can make commercials that are, completely AI out of people that aren't real, but they look real. So, I mean, I think for personal branding, it's like, it's being real. I mean, all of technology has, it's got on one side of things, it's, an incredible opportunity with a lot of things, but also I think what we need to do and what you need to do is building a personal brand is, I guess, lean on that authenticity. And people are now like more accepting of content that doesn't look as flashy or, polished as, a television production. It's like people are wanting to see, on TikTok or Instagram or wherever you get your content, people want to see real people. I mean, in a reality TV context, obviously that's, where I work. But I mean, people love it when, a few years ago, people started to see the cameras, like when something would happen and there was someone running away and, the cameras would pull out and you'd see a cameraman and a producer, and people loved that. And I think that is kind of the same thing. It's like seeing the real, not the polished. Like even, MasterChef taught, like I was speaking to the EP a while back, and they said there was like a conscious decision to start showing like a quick pan of the camera because reality TV started looking so polished that people were like, well, this isn't real. So, editors are being told, no, keep that part in, keep that sort of shaky camera in, because people then know that it is a moment, it is real, we haven't set it up. So, I think authenticity, as buzzy as it is, I think, being real is crucial.
For you, Jen, is there any other non-negotiables that you pass on?
Absolutely, but I'll just go back to what Haley was saying. I did a reel a couple of weeks ago at the hairdressers. Now, this pink, it's high maintenance. Like, I spend hours at the hairdressers, so no, I wish it was. It would be so much cheaper. But I was doom scrolling, and I'm like, everyone's sounding the same, everyone's looking the same. So I had all the hair colour in, had all the, cover things on. I just went and sat outside and recorded a reel, like going, I'm so sad today because, I'm scrolling, blah, blah, blah. That was probably one of the most engaged reels that I'd done for ages, because it was just me sitting there saying my opinion. So that's the thing, the polished, they don't want the polished. And authenticity is such a buzzword, and I try not to say it, but sometimes it's the only word you can say. But non-negotiables. I work with Gen X women, and that's probably way past the majority of your ages, which is women from 45 to about 65. And we often have felt invisible for many years. We've been raising our kids, we've been looking after our parents, all of these things. So we forget who we are. So for me, the non-negotiables in building a brand for them is to go right back to the beginning, back to the foundations. So I work with brand archetypes, brand voice, your story, and your why. And those are the things that bring your brand back to life. Because we do get stuck. I've just come off like a sort of 12-month sabbatical, I guess you'd say, where life lifed, and, I didn't really work in my business, but coming back to those foundations, to my personality and voice, to my story, and the why I'm doing this. Why do I get out of bed every morning? What is my purpose? What is my brand promise? Those are the things that actually really make you unforgettable, because nobody can copy your story, your why. They can copy your voice if they want to, but, really, when you weave all that together, that's what builds the standout, strong flamingo and a flock of seagulls.
Fantastic. And Nick?
I'm going to talk too much.
Ellen will
I think
jump
it's
in.
really important that you understand how trust is built, right? Look, reality is we're living in a world now where there is no trust. So what we're actually taking care of is the emotional path to purchase before anything else, right? And what I mean by that is that we're leading with hesitation. We don't trust police force, politicians, religion, media. We don't even trust our local mechanic anymore, right? Like, does he really know what I need, or is he trying to sell me something? So we're leading with this, I need confirmation, take care of the reassurance I need before anything else, right? And so the way you build trust is through consistency anchored back to the emotional default that I told you before. Does that make sense? Right? Like if I want you to come out to dinner with me, I'm going to go, it's amazing. We're going to have a great time. We're going to this restaurant. This person's going to be there. I'm paying. Here's where we're going after. And what you do as a human is you build a cognitive narrative anchored back to that emotion to decide whether I trust or don't trust. Okay, so those are called persuaders. And over time, and this is one of the things that's been removed, is the patience. Over time, that moves from persuading, convincing you to come to dinner, to influencing you to come to dinner. And influence is not, I'm on TikTok, I'm an influencer. Those are persuaders. They're trying to get you to buy something. Influence is when something happens in your world and I'm the first person you think of, right? And that takes time to move from emotional default, persuader, to cognitive default, influence. You don't even need to think about it. When we go to dinner, I need Nick there, right? Yeah.
I love that we already brought up authenticity, because today we wanted to explore the foundations of what makes a personal brand. So also, obviously being authentic, effective, and memorable. But sometimes as you're growing a personal brand, it can often take on a life of its own. So what would you recommend for someone who is building a personal brand, but it no longer reflects their true north, so to speak? Hayley, we can start with you.
I guess I think it's coming back to the why. If you're building something and it doesn't reflect what you initially intended, I guess it's figuring out whether that's a good thing or not. Because, you know, I don't think there's an issue if your personal brand is evolving as you change and as you go through a different life stage, then that might be a good thing. But if it's conflicting, if the why isn't, you know, doesn't matter to you anymore, if you can't figure out why you're doing what you're doing and it's not going in a way that you're happy with, I think it's just getting back to, like, what are you trying to achieve? Because there's no point if you don't even believe in the thing that you're putting out there, why is anyone else going to believe like what you're doing?
And then so when building a personal brand, do you think that you should solely focus then on your personal values, or is there kind of room for that market demand focusing on that as well? Or where is the compromise with that?
Well, I guess your personal brand, for me, personal brand starts with reputation. So I think that is where everything begins and how you represent yourself. So in terms of, I guess, market demand for what you want to put out there, I think if the end goal is to have something that you're trying to sell, yes, you need to think of who your audience is and what the demand is for it. But I don't think you should lose yourself along the way, and I don't think you're going to have an effective brand or business if it's completely away from what you actually, who you are. So I guess, like, for me, as an example, for me, like, I am a TV producer. My podcast is very close to me because it is a podcast about people that work in television, and so I'm talking to those people. So I guess that, I mean, in that sense, I'm doing something that I believe in, I know very strongly, and I can talk to. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I see you nodding along, Jen, as well. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I feel when we're talking about personal brands and individuals, I think some of the strongest ones come back to that why. You know, we get to choose. That's the beauty of it. We actually get to choose what we do, who we are, who we work with. We are going to repel some people. Like I know I do, and I'm actually okay with that because I don't want to work with those people. I always say, I may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I'm sure as heck someone's shot of vodka. And that's the thing. And once you are okay with that, and it's hard, we are people pleasers. I'm sure everyone would agree. We've been brought up to be, you know, for me in particular, at my age, you know, Jennifer, be quiet. Jennifer, be a lady. Jennifer, why are you so flamboyant? And we do lose ourselves. So that when we're building that strong brand, to come back to the why are we doing this? Why? So for me, and I always love to tell a story, I was made redundant when I was 52 back in 2020. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? This is terrifying. I'm a single mum. What am I going to do? I can't not work. And friends were saying, oh, you should just retire. I'm like, I'm not ready for knitting by the fire just yet. And from that, my brand has come forward to help other women of my age realize that this is not the end. You know, your 50s are not the end. They're just the beginning. It's the most amazing time and it's so much fun. And to realize that, you know, we can do anything. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing what I do. And I do think that's where the strongest ones do come from. In a personal solopreneur, you know, which is me, and probably Hayley as well, style of brand. I hope that made sense. Good. I started rambling. I tend to do that.
Fantastic, thank you. And, you know, in an age of sort of trial by media, you know, once things go up to the cloud, it's up there, screenshots, you know, everyone's got a phone and a camera. And cancel culture is real amongst society, within our industry. What are some of the things that, you know, personal brands should consider when dealing with a crisis or public backlash? I'll go with you, Nick.
Oh, great. I think in most cases, figuring out the perception, right? Because naturally you're going to lean into the negative. It's what we do, right? We go, oh my God, da da da. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a negative. And obviously, there's variables to situation and what happens. I'll give you an example. We did a campaign with Nike, right, a few years back, and there was a guy, Colin Kaepernick. Does anyone know who he is? So he dropped to one knee during Black Lives Matter. He was an American football player, right? And there was a huge uproar. He's not American. He got dropped from the NFL. We took him on. Nike took him on. And we did this campaign, stand for nothing. Stand for something and not everyone will stand with you. Stand for nothing and you'll stand alone, right? And we went with this. And people were burning their Nikes. There was like huge uproar online, you know, F you Nike and da-da-da-da. And what we saw after the first month was sales increased 30% and then globally 80% after 12 months. So what it actually did for us was it actually gave us clarity around our community. Those people that were burning their Nikes they weren't our target market in the first place, right? So my point being is that get really, really clear around, is it damage control or is it actually something that is going to reinforce some part of you in a really positive way?
Thank you for that.
Okay, so I'd like to hear from all of you on this one. We have a room full of budding media professionals at the moment. So thinking back to when you first started making your personal brand, if you could give yourself one piece of sage advice, what would it be? Jen, I'll start.
Don't listen to the shoulds. Ban the shoulds. We're brought up listening to what we should do. Don't listen to that. You do you.
Love that. I love that. It's so funny because when you guys are all going to go off on your own, right? And you're going to hear that a lot. I heard it so when I left the corporate industry and was like, right, I'm going to go and do my own thing. People were like, you can't do that. Like, you should be doing. And it's like, no. That you can't do that, right? The reality is, people are only going to tell you how they're feeling and their fears and their own experiences about how you should be. Parents do it all the time with their children. The thing that I would say is most important is don't go this way straight away. Go this way. We see it with brands all the time. They're like, oh, maybe we need to be on TikTok and maybe we need to be opening up into homeware and and that creates pinballing, right? Right. So if you go this way, you need to get really, really clear on the feeling you're selling, because that allows you to bring the vitality to the market, and understanding your purpose. Well, purpose has changed, right? For a lot of brands, it used to be, why do we exist outside of making money? Purpose today is, if your brand is the answer, what's the question? And being able to answer that question. But getting that clarity on not what you would say yes to, but more importantly, what you would say no to, means that you're going to have the discipline to be able to move forward really, really consistently.
Hayley, what about yourself?
I just think building something that you care about and that you're passionate about, because I think, you need to care about what you're doing and what you're putting out there to keep going, because building a personal brand, it takes time. It takes so much more time than you even think. And so you need to love it.
Totally.
That repetition that you spoke about before, reputation, that's built on repetition, right? Mm-hmm. It's no different to a relationship that you have at home. The way I turn up consistently with my partner is what I become famous for, right? So if I went home tonight and I was in a chicken suit and had a tantrum, that's what creates the doubt that I thought you were this, but I thought you were that. So you have to get that really, really clear in your head so you're delivering it every single time. And it does. You have to double down on it time and time again. In a relationship, it's every day, all the time. With brands, it's as often as you can. So get that clarity, because it keeps you off autopilot. And we see this with brands all the time. They end up going on autopilot, and now they're going, oh yeah, let's do, Black Friday. And why? Oh, everyone does it. Well, it's not good enough, It has to be intentional every single time.
And actually, I'll just go with Nick saying consistency. That's my favourite C word in branding. Because if I suddenly turned up and started talking like this and rather than talking like I do, they'd be going, what the heck? That's when you lose that trust. And it is so important to just, and that doesn't mean posting on Instagram for me. That's where I play. And actually, that's really good what you were saying, because so many people think, I've got to be here and I've got to be TikToking and I've got to do this. No, just do one and do it well. But that's where I turn up to play. But I only post 4 times a week. But there's people out there saying, you've got to post twice a day. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You should. Do what, suits you, and be consistent about it. Because I love hearing you say that word so many times. Because I'm like, yes, consistency.
Well, yeah, it's a buzzword, right?
It is.
It doesn't mean much unless you understand why it's so important. You can turn up on any platform, but you have to understand as a brand, what is the behavior that you're trying to sell, right? Because that's what is, we're in a space now where your LLMs, your ChatGPTs, your Genesis, whatever, they're literally auditing brands. So what I mean by that is that the days of being able to control the narrative, we're the most trusted, company culture first, and paying for it to rank the highest are gone. Because you can go into ChatGPT now, or Claude, whatever it is that you choose to use. And I had this with a bottled water company, right? I won't name names, but really well known. Their marketing spend annually was the same as most businesses' gross annual profit, right? So really well known. And then I went and did research on the Asia Pacific market, and I was like, give me the top 10 most respected, and it didn't come up. And I was like, why didn't you put this brand in there? Oh, they're really well known, but they actually don't test very well with customers. There's a lot of alkaline, feels silky. And so it's the same, right? It's the same if you're a business that is saying company culture is really important to us, and there's a few reviews floating out there that say the opposite, you're going to get picked up really quickly. So you cannot control the narrative like that unless you're doubling down on the behavior. Those days of being able to romance your audience are gone. The truth is really, really important. So, yeah.
And just sort of finishing on this last question, what is more important to each of you, consistency or creativity? Or is there a balance? Jen?
Well, my background is a graphic designer. So, but consistency is one of my favorite C words. So like the balance is real, but I know for me, if I am not being creative in my business and how I show up, my energy goes down, I get flat, and that actually, and my brand flatlines. So if I'm not feeling like, if I'm, navigating something in my life and my creativity is dipped, that is really, really obvious in my business. So I shouldn't have said consistency is my favourite C word, because really creativity is one of them too. I have many favourite C words. But yeah, for me, it is creativity, because with that background as a designer, I also am an artist, I'm an illustrator. So I do all of these things, and if I'm not feeling it, it's very, very obvious. So that for me would be creativity.
Thanks.
I think it's important to understand I think we get create wrong. Like, it's one of the highest forms of thinking, right, when we think about where it sits, but we often think it's artistic, it's design, but it's not. It's being able to mine everything out, compare it, break it down, put it back together. It takes effort, right? It's a lot of mining, and what we do is we put it into a schema that then allows us to come up with a new idea, right? Or reinterpreting it in a different way. And I do love that. I think that's the highest. It's amazing what people create, but you don't have to come up with a new idea. I mean, look at Dyson. Dyson's a great example. Vacuums have been around for years, right? Who has a Dyson? Yeah, right. So what makes Dyson so special is they've reinterpreted the vacuum to create a different experience, right? And so reward for vacuuming, which we always get wrong in retail as well, reward with Dyson is you can see the dust being collected, you can feel it sucking on the floor, and what it does is it gives you a sense of reward. Reward is when you have a feeling of winning or progressing in your life. And so that's what they provide you in vacuuming, right? That's what makes creativity so amazing. I don't know if either of those are most important to me.
Could you share with us, please?
I found that it's often the opposite of what I think it is. Like, anything I've ever done for free has had the greatest return on investment, right? And the influence or the ability to impact people positively, their brands, has been amazing. That's the stuff that I get excited about. Seeing people so confused about their brand and then getting them emotional because we've found that spark again, like, that's living, right? And I think it's often the same. Like, if I had this guy come to me not long ago, and he was really down and out, and I'm like, well, go and do something for somebody else for free. Like, if you want to drive oxytocin in your body, they're like, go and help somebody out, right? And I would say that to you guys as well, as personal brands or as brands. If your brand is suffering, you're probably thinking about yourself too much. Yeah.
I might just add another C word. Sorry, I'm going to jump in. Commitment as well, because I think a lot in the solopreneur brands, we see all that out online, 10x your brand overnight, 50,000 people in 2 seconds, all of that stuff. And then that makes us feel bad about what we're doing because we may not be there. But you keep going and you commit, and the good things do come. Sorry, this is very lightweight right now, but commitment is also really important, because without it, you can just give up. And I see it so often, and I've seen it so many times, and it's really sad.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there. It's an illusion, right? So what I did with Nike was we would start. Sorry, Hayley. Yeah.
Sorry, I just jumped in.
Yeah. Hayley, if you could just be quiet for a minute. So with Nike and Adidas, my job was to talk to tastemakers, early adopters, right? So tastemakers were the authors of trends, right? And then we would work down to early adopters. Early adopters wouldn't set trends, but they'll pick up on them really quickly. We knew that if we could get it past these two consumer sets, that we would drive sales later on. It would work down into the watches. Watches are, you tell me what's cool, right? And then skeptics. Skeptics are when enough people are wearing it, it's now safe enough for me to do the same. Okay, so that probably took 6 to 8 months of consistently driving that narrative, allowing more into the marketplace, and then we would turn it off to protect the footwear, protect the silhouette. But what you're getting told today is that you can drive, 10x overnight, and like you might, but what you're doing is you're convincing your audience, but you're not building conviction. And we see this in content creation all the time now as well. It's a vibe trap. Because we're working with algorithms, the content has the right tone, it has the right fonts. You might like it, you might even save it, but you move on from it really, really quickly, because it's not built on emotion, it's not built on memory, right? And so be patient. Be patient.
Nice.
And go.
Yeah, okay, my turn. I guess, your question about what's more important, creativity or consistency. I guess for me, creativity is fun and it comes more naturally. And that's, a really great part of the job and building my personal brand. But, consistency feels like a luxury, because the reality is a lot of people, when you're sort of in the early days of building your personal brand, it's not your main source of income, or it's a side hustle. And so I can be consistent in terms of my podcast. I am consistent in delivering what I promise, which is, interviews with TV executives and people that work in the TV industry. But in terms of pumping them out week after week, it's just not feasible for me. Like, especially, at a time since I created the podcast, I was working full-time in TV, which is a 50-hour minimum week every week, and often traveling for work, working 6 days a week on, I'd be away on Survivor. So, that's 7-8 weeks away from everybody, and I'm not recording podcasts when I'm there. And so I had to learn that I had to release my podcast in seasons. I had to record blocks, prep them, and then get them out so that I could consistently deliver them fortnightly. So that's just a reality that I had to do, because, my podcast isn't my main job. It's something that I do. It's something that I love, but it's a passion project. So I think, while you're building that, I think consistency for me is definitely a luxury, and it's something that's really important, but it's also like the biggest challenge.
It's that threshold, right? Because we see the same thing all the time with brands. That consistency threshold and understanding how much you can deliver without compromising the value and quality of what you're delivering is everything, right? When I first started off, all I used to go to bed thinking was, have I moved the needle today? That's it. That's all it was. Like, have I done something that allows me to move forward? And some days that felt like I'd done a lot, and other days it felt less, right? Write an article, do this, get on, whatever it is. But momentum adds up really quickly, right? And all it takes is 1 to 3% change to have a great impact in time, right? If you're in an airplane, you deviate 1%, you're going to end up in a very different location. And it's the same game.
It's just how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Got it. You got it.
Bit by bit. Okay, so thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. We're going to open it up now to our audience for a Q&A. We have Jackson, our MC, with a roving microphone. So if you'd like to ask a question, please just raise your hand, let us know your name, and Jackson will come visit you.
Any questions? Anyone?
Hello, I'm Junior. I'm a teacher at Building Z with these amazing people that are hosting. You guys doing like such a great job. About like the personal branding thing, like one of the key things that I took, and that's like how I try to kind of like live life, is that like it almost overlaps who you are too, right? Because if you're thinking too much of like, oh, you know, personal branding as work and forgetting to be like, you know, like creating a character, I think that gets old too fast. Like, would you guys agree with me?
Completely agree. One of the
Same.
things Adidas, Nike was even better at it, right? Is I used to do it the same afterwards. Was when I was hiring somebody, it was not about bum on seat. It wasn't about here's the job description, you got to be able to do it. It was all DNA, right? And knowing that you get the DNA right, you'll actually get more out of them. And so Nike used to do this so well because, like, I did 10 years at Nike, which is nothing. There's guys that have done 17. I know a guy done 33 years. And what they do is they have, they bring people on that are naturally relevant or into that category, whether it's running. You know, I looked after the fashion streetwear side of the business. Skateboard guys, the skate team, they all looked homeless, right? They all had shaved heads and baggy pants because they lived and breathed skate. So they were the best people for that role. Anything that you will need to do within that role, you can learn, right? So yes, having that blended environment is crucial. You'll know, like if you go into work with somebody or into a category that isn't you, you'll know because you won't have the fire.
Thanks, Junior. We have time for another question. Up the front, awesome.
Hi there, my name is Monique Jeremiah, and you mentioned the word polarising, which I thought was a great word. I've been on reality TV previously, and one issue that I found is the issue of tall poppy syndrome in Australia. So, yeah, I think you probably feel a bit of that. So my question is, how would you overcome the problem of tall poppy syndrome right now? Because this is an issue I have constantly.
Yeah. Like I said before, the best way to serve your audience is to ignore them, right? And it's really tempting. Oh, let's just see who's looked at my story. Let's just, you know, I write articles and I'm put it on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, this is a grenade, right? This is going to, no one likes it. So how am I measuring success is my point. But New Zealand's famous. I'm from New Zealand. New Zealand's famous for tall poppy syndrome. They love an underdog until you get up to a certain stage, and then they're like, no, gone too far, tear them down. That's why a lot of Kiwis will leave. But don't buy into the illusion, is what I'm saying. And often the ones that are hating are your greatest followers. They're the ones that are always watching what you're doing because you know you're doing something right when you're getting that type of attention. And you know what? Lean into it. It's so good for you. Not as a personal growth, but it's so good for your brand, right? Yeah. So when I say polarizing, I don't mean provocative, right? You don't have to be, but I mean disruptive. I did 5.5 years at Westfield looking after Common Mall, which means we would work with Prada and Gucci and bring and activate, right? And shopping centres do this really well. They're looking for two things. They're either providing a sense of belonging for you. So I know where my coffee is, I know where Nike is, I know where to get this, and you feel like, oh yeah, this is a place that feels comfortable. The other part of that is the disruption. That's what I was responsible for. I didn't expect to see that, but that totally makes sense to me as a customer, right? So this what you're talking about here, just think about it as it's the uncertainty part, and it's really, really strong, but it's also very flash in the pan. It actually doesn't have a lot of depth, so you don't need to really weigh into it. And why clarity around who you are becomes so important, because that gives you the discipline to know is it worth listening to? Your circle is going to be pretty small. There's a lot of people you don't need to listen to. Yeah.
And I'll come in from a personal level because I am my brand. I've been a victim of trolling online and all sorts of things. And you know what? I'm just like, what pathetic lives do they have if they're just going to sit there and think it's okay to pull somebody else down? So my biggest advice would be just ignore them. I know it's really, really hard, but ignore them. I've made stories out of trolling. I was running Facebook ads and, this one woman came in and said, "Oh, you look like a clown." And I'm like, "Beg your pardon?" She's like, she said Clown City. And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what does that mean?" She's like, "You look like a clown." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's what you think. I don't care." And that's a thing. Like, if you're so strong in who you are, why you do what you do, your personal convictions, these people can't bring you down. Actually, that just popped into my head was the song from Wicked, Defying Gravity. Like, bring me down. I won't sing because you'll all leave. No, I'm not going to sing. But that's the thing. There are always people out there trying to bring you down. I am very different from a traditional brand strategist. And there's always someone. Just ignore them and continue being you. I know it's hard. I know it's really hard. But they're not your people. They're just people that have really empty lives.
I think a lot of the time it's also not real, right? Like we all have ego, right? Ego is not a bad thing. Ego is just how you think the rest of the world see you, right? It's when you look in the mirror and you go, "Killer," right? But it's also when you look in the mirror and you go, "Oh my God, I've put on so much weight." It's just how you think the rest of the world see you, right? And so what we do is we buy things and have things that allow us to send a message to the rest of the world. This is what I'm about. This is what I want you to know. That is what's called your third persona, right? And a lot of the time, the stuff here is you get to choose whether, like, the relevance you're putting on it is, like, you're responsible for that.
Yeah, I think that's a nice note to end on, that haters are fans, they just don't know it yet. I would like to thank our panellists today, Jen Bowers, Nick Gray, and Hayley Ferguson. Please give me a hand thanking them.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. It was a very authentic panel. Thank you all for joining. Please stick around. There is another panel in a few minutes. Thank you very much again to our guests, the amazing three guests. Give them another round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.